I'm your host, Doc Rodden, and this is Gruesome Magazine, where we review the very latest in streaming and video on-demand horror movies. Each week, my co-host, Jeff Mohr, Crystal Cleveland, and I will take a look at various spooky, scary, and gory genre offerings. With me this week is my co-host, Jeff Mohr. Jeff, how you doing?
I'm doing great, in more ways than one.
In Jeff more ways than one.
Yes.
That sounds so mysterious.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. You own it, man. All right. Also joining us this week is Crystal Cleveland, the living dead girl. Crystal, how you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you guys doing?
This is going to be an interesting episode. We have something special in store for our listeners, not only in content, but with our special guest returning once again is H&R co-host David Dreher. Dave, how you doing?
Woo!
You couldn't keep me away. You tried.
Awesome.
There was no keeping me away.
He's been camped out here ever since.
I just lurk in this room waiting for you all to come back in because I know you'll come back in.
We have to give him
Lurking.
we have to give him a Twizzler when we come in the door. We can't. Welcome back, Dave.
Thank you. Glad to be here. Thank you for asking.
And you are the reason, partially, at least the inspiration for this week's topic. Instead of a pair of movies like we have in our introduction, we are doing a series. We are going to talk about Slasher Solstice, which is the third in that series on Netflix. And I remember when this came out. It came out a little less than a month ago. You text me, and we both got into the series, and were surprised how awesome and gory it was. Was that right, Dave?
Indeed, yes. This is a nice little treat for all us gore fans, for sure.
I think so, and I think it's one
Definitely.
it's one that's overlooked by a lot of horror fans because there's so much content, and that's our job, right? We're here to kind of spotlight ones that you should be seeing, or maybe kick to the curb some you shouldn't. In this case, I think it's one you should see. Well, at least Dave and I think so. Now we have asked Jeff Mohr and Crystal Cleveland to watch it as well, which they have, and we have gathered to talk about it. This is Slasher Solstice. It's on Netflix. It's a Canadian-produced show and directed by Adam McDonald. This season, called Solstice, basically covers a 24-hour period, with each episode taking the title of 3 hours, like 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. or 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. and stuff like that. So it's kind of a cross between American Horror Story and 24, at least this season. And let's find out what the Grue-Crew think of Slasher Solstice. I'm getting tongue-tied. I can't even say tongue-tied. I'm talking too much, so it's time for somebody else. Crystal Cleveland, what is your first impression of Slasher Solstice?
Well, I've watched all 3 seasons, and I've got to say, I think this third season might actually be my favorite. I love the other seasons, but there's something really fun about this. I think it's a must watch. That's what I'm just going to say at first. I really like it. I really enjoy it. It's got a great look to it. The story always, flows well. There's always something going on. And most of the time, I don't know who did it. Usually I can figure it out in a lot of movies, but especially in this one, I had no idea. So when we got to the end, I was like, oh, well, that's fun. I like that each season has some sort of kind of theme. Definitely, I think this season it was, and I think I know that one of the kids says it at some point. It's like you reap what you sow. And this is definitely a theme throughout this one. And the gore is really, really good. They have so many creative deaths, and the kill count is really high. I don't know what it is, but I mean, it's easily like 13, maybe more, which is a win in my book. But, I like the gore myself. Like I said, the deaths were creative, and they kind of fit each person and each individual. I feel like the characters were well developed, and some of them went through some very interesting transitions and character arcs and development. And shockingly, even though the whole season is like based over a 24-hour period or a day and a half or something, I bought it. I bought a character development major change throughout that. They had a lot of flashbacks, which gave you a lot of great and relevant information throughout. I think the acting was great. I think the story was good. I think they had a lot of diversity amongst the characters. Everything made sense. I have like a 2 thumbs up over here with me. Say, watch it, check it out. It's fast too. I mean, I know it's 8 episodes, but it feels really fast to me. Like I guess because of the pacing of the show, but sometimes you can watch something and you're like, yeah. No, this felt very, very fast.
Yeah, it breezes by. And I think a lot of the credit goes to the characters that the cast play. There are a variety of different characters, very modern.
Yes.
And they seem to matter, and they play off each other. They interact differently with different characters, and that's all fascinating. We'll get into many of them as we discuss, but yeah, I think this is a smartly written show. Surprising. It's one of the better horror offerings, and I'm hoping that as we talk about tonight, people will decide to catch it. Jeff Mohr, what is your first impression of Slasher Solstice?
Well, I'm really glad that we were doing this because I hadn't seen this for the exact reason that you stated. Too much out there. Don't know what to pick. I picked other stuff. So you got me to do. Now, if I'd have known that the 3rd season was directed by Adam McDonald, I would have jumped on it sooner because we did one of his movies last year, Pyewacket, and then other people might be familiar with Backcountry.
Oh, man. I didn't realize that. Oh.
Excellent movies. So various writers, I think, but he's apparently directed every episode this season. And Crystal's right. They're like 45 minutes, 8 episodes, so it's about 6 hours. Not bad at all. And I just have to say, I started watching this on Friday, June 21st, which just happened to be the summer solstice.
Oh, man.
Anyway, I dug it. And I think exactly the reasons that Crystal gave. I think it has some good character development, some good character conflicts, even outside of the murders that are going on. A wide variety of characters, a lot of diversity in all areas that I could think of. The over-under on the how many kills there were, Crystal was low.
Yeah. Oh, I was low. I thought so. I wasn't. I don't know what the actual kill count was, but yeah.
Yeah, my OCD came through, and I had to go back through and figure out how many there were.
So you got to tell us. You got to tell us, Chap. You're gonna leave me hanging?
Okay, well, there's 17, and it's strange.
17.
There's a trivia thing in IMDb that says there was the body count's 16, and then it lists off 17 names. So.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Anyway,
oh, man. Yeah.
Although one of them might not be a kill, it wasn't a killed by a murderer. But anyway,
oh, it's still one of the kill count.
And so many inventive, different ways to kill. It kept it very interesting. I enjoyed the heck out of it.
Yeah, and it is amazing that with 17 deaths, there's still plenty of cast members that make it to the final.
Well, I don't know if I'd say plenty.
Well, maybe not plenty, but I mean, not everybody dies. I guess
right,
is my point, right? So, yeah, many of them do. Dave Dreher, you are the one that, knowing it or not, sparked this debate. So, jump in here and tell us what your first impression of Slasher is.
Like Crystal, I had watched all 3 seasons. I don't know if you all remember, that's actually started on the now defunct Chiller TV cable network back in the day. Netflix picked it up. The second season, I really had a hard time holding my interest. And I'm not even honestly sure why I started watching the 3rd season. But very early on, we are treated to one of the most gruesome kills I've seen put to film in quite a while, quite frankly, with the beheading, which I'm sure we'll get into it. But like right away, I was like, holy shit. I mean, this is an elongated kill. And it is really vicious. So I was like, wow, I mean, these guys are literally going for the throat, if you will.
Sorry.
I was hooked. I actually watched it a second time because I watched it pretty early on when it came out. So when Doc mentioned we were going to do this, I actually watched it again. And I think the message, it didn't come across as such in the first viewing, but I think because it was so much going on the second time, I was really kind of able to settle into the message. And I think sometimes it's a little ham-handed in what they're trying to say. Not that it's not important. They just maybe at times go a little overboard trying to sell the message. So I have to say on a second viewing, it didn't appeal to me quite as much, but still exceptionally well done gore effects. And there's no denying that the overall message of this period we find ourselves in, full of hatred and all this other stuff, it definitely has an important message it's trying to put out there. I think this is, and correct me if I'm wrong here, one of the most inclusive cast of characters I've seen. I mean, we have, you name a group of people who have been put upon and they're represented in this in some way. And they've all got their own character arc that in the end all kind of comes together and makes for an interesting ending.
Yeah, and I don't think it feels forced.
Oddly, it doesn't. And that's what I think is kind of interesting about it because, well, I guess you would normally look at this and go, well, why are these characters, what do these characters have to do? Well, they all live at the same place. So by making the apartment complex or the apartment building, I guess, the central focus, you would have a lot of different characters, that you'd have to deal with.
Right. I mean, this is the perfect, I mean, it's the melting pot. You always hear about the melting pot. This is the melting pot in one building.
Right.
And they're all forced to interact with one another because of these horrible events going on. It really works. I don't know if you're inclined to watch it a second time, but I'd be interested to see if you feel the second time around when you're kind of taken out of the gore and that stuff like that, if you feel the message is kind of really crammed down your throat, maybe a little too hard.
So I watched it twice too, because I watched it as soon as it first came out. I do agree. Absolutely. But I think I was able to focus a little bit more on the gore and I enjoyed the gore more this time. Maybe that's because of the first time I watched it, I was like, whoa. I'm surprised. I really was kind of taken back.
There's some crazy shit in there.
Yeah, it was a little. I mean, I love gore, but really, a lot of stuff just doesn't. They shy away, or they just give the idea of it more than actual. No, this pretty much just shows you. So I agree with you on that front. I wouldn't say I enjoyed it less, but I wouldn't say I enjoyed the whole thing more, but I did enjoy the gore more this time because I was really watching it because I knew what was coming and I was like, oh yeah, that's better. Instead of just being intrigued by the fact that they were showing it at all, it's like, wow. I mean, you expect it from some things, but I guess just from some show on Netflix, I wasn't ready.
I wasn't ready.
Exactly.
Yeah, I found that I really did really enjoy this, and like Dave, the second one, while it was fun, it didn't really keep your attention like this one. This one, I had a hard time not just trying to binge it all at once. I mean, because I kept wanting to go to the next one, and I really enjoyed how all these characters were woven together, and each interaction was unique and different and complex, especially when it comes to how they deal with Cassidy's father, this white supremacist that's in the building. Of course,
oh my gosh, the best character in the show is Tori Spelling's husband, and that is amazing. That's amazing.
But what's interesting is, like, our lead character, who's Muslim, it extends her kindness to him, even though, her parents say not to. And, when she's alone, she does, then he's having trouble getting the door. I'm just kind of, putting out one scene there. And his reaction to it was far deeper than you would get in what you think you would get in a show like this. And there's a lot of that. And, from broken families to friends that are weird to the main, the not the main character, but the character that kind of drives it all, this Kit Jennings, Robert Cormier, who is the first one to die and kind of drives a lot of the narrative, even after his death, which I was incredibly fascinated by how this character, even though he technically is gone, still affects all these characters.
Was he a sex addict? Is that what he basically was?
Most definitely, yeah.
I think he was pretty much addicted to anything you got.
Yeah. I mean,
anything he could derive pleasure from. Yes.
Okay.
I thought you said drive there for a second. That would work too. So it is. When he's, I think you really get that picture when he's in the laundry room with the teacher, who's a little bit more straight-laced than everybody in here. And, they're flirting with each other, and he kind of calls her out on her shit. Because there's a lot of flashbacks. Even though it's a 24-hour, story that's constructed on this 24-hour thing, it has all these flashbacks that fill in the blanks, and they're wonderful. They're wonderful. Mm-hmm. And most of them involve this Kit Jennings, who basically ended up, contacting or running into almost every single character. Robert Cormier plays him with such flair and brashness and boldness that, you can see how he would affect all these characters in this way. And I found that really fascinating. I found all the characters fascinating. And a lot of times when the characters died, it still had effects. Like one of the mothers passes away, and that drives a lot of the story. The character Cassidy, spoilers, she is killed fairly early on.
Yeah, it's early on.
Yeah, fairly early on.
But they don't discover her body for episodes, and they all get real close, and it's like, oh, that's no.
They're using a "Where's my iPhone" app, and they're in the same room, but they can't find her.
Right. And so it's so inventive in that way, and through it all, you're left guessing, okay, who is doing this? And literally anybody here, except for one person, I would wager, could have done it. And maybe a few others I wouldn't have guessed. And I think like Crystal, I was all over the place. And when it was revealed, it was a surprise. I was like, okay, that's not entirely where I thought this was going. And that's kind of awesome. And there's these quirky characters, I'm trying to think of who the person actually is. I think it's Amber. Is that right, Joanne Vanacola? Who should actually be in a mental hospital. She is.
Yes.
The character, not the actress, but the character.
She has issues.
She does. I mean, understandably, given the backstory, and her stepkids, air quotes, are taking care of her, and she's wandering around the halls and.
She's all around the door.
It's so bizarre. Yeah. But what a great character.
Way too well. She played it so well. I was like, is she right? I wonder if this actress is okay. She was so good at it. I was like, really, really creepy.
Well, and we're introduced to her with that crazy scene down in the square.
Oh, the water technically.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then when we find out what that is springing from, it makes it so sad and oh man.
Well, okay, but let's be there's another aspect to this. So someone in the show commits suicide. And the reason that they commit suicide is really, quite honestly, based on something that they did on social media. So I find that whole concept really interesting because she wasn't murdered, but she decided to commit suicide because of the way that everyone was treated after she made some horrible comments on social media. I feel like the whole thing is a very interesting thing because this starts a whirlwind of bad stuff. And I feel like, obviously the way that she was treated afterward was completely excessive. and a little insane. But once again, it's also a reap what you sow kind of thing. You can't just post really awful things about someone and expect to have no repercussions.
Yeah.
So, because I was like, well, I mean, is no one going to take any accountability for what she's done there? Because that's not really cool.
Everybody is under some sort of stress other than this person running around and slaughtering people. They all have their own things. Like, she had other stress already in, and that's why she was probably driven over the edge, that making that decision, and then even how she reacted afterwards, that they were being discriminated against as a lesbian couple.
Well, and then obviously Kit was
yes.
definitely a jerk. I mean, the one scene, she's like, they're in the hall. I mean, it's just an interesting thing. Honestly, I get why everything transpired from that point. I mean, the reactions and stuff from that. But I'm like, well, ooh-wee. I guess we should maybe have some sort of like button social media that wouldn't let us post stuff like that. I mean, because what she did was really awful, and I guess a lot of people, for as much of a jerk, quote unquote jerk, Kit seemed like, people kind of loved him. I mean, well, both physically and probably
yeah, except for the people that he screwed over, I guess. There was a couple of them, I think.
Yeah.
But even then, they had a hard time with it, right? So
they really did. It's like, I think even he just touched people. I think for people, they saw him as like such a free spirit. I think sometimes that's very attractive. You see someone living without apologies, literally.
Yeah, because you have Angel, who was madly in love with him, but rejected because Kit also had an affair with Cassidy, the teen, and that didn't sit well with him. But
Kit's not doing any monogamy whatsoever.
No, not at all. He's just not interested in that. So it all ties everything together in a really interesting way that brings everybody under suspicion. And there's some detective work going on here that also involves some people out of the story that throws a little bit of a curve into it and actually reveals something we weren't expecting, but still doesn't solve everything. So just kind of flipping awesome, right? So Dave, what surprised you the most about this? Is there an element that set you back in the seat and going, wow, I can't believe they did that?
I think it's just its ability to, like you saying, Doc, to just keep you just wanted to keep watching. Like every time an episode ended, you're like, I got to see what's next. I have to. I can't not know. I can't go to work and not know. I have to know. It's been a while. I have a feeling Ryan Murphy's sitting at home trying to figure out how he can do this for American Horror Story. Because like you said, this is kind of a thing to that. But American Horror Stories lack that ability to, at least for me, maintain my interest for any length of time. But they really managed to build a story and build characters and again, bring just the right amount of gore at the right time to just really want to keep you moving along in the story. I was like you. I probably, the first time I watched this, I think I watched all 8 episodes over the course of a night and a half. So, I mean, in this day and age, that's kind of amazing, quite frankly. So I think that would be the thing that most impressed me, was their ability to weave these characters together in a way that made me really want to know where it was going to go and how it was going to end.
Dave, in terms of the gore, I know you're well acquainted with a lot of special effects folks. I was pretty impressed with the special effects.
Oh yeah, very much so. I mean, I would say probably 90% practical from what I could tell. And again, they didn't wince away from it. That very first beheading that we're treated to, I've been trying to find something to compare it to. And I mean, I think it's literally been decades since we've seen a practical effect that was on screen that long. I mean, usually you get, the little, the quick cuts and that don't happen here.
That's the other thing that struck me, is that it's not quick cuts, but it's also not go overboard, right? on focusing on it. You always get a pretty good shot of what's going on, but it isn't like trying to gross you. I don't know.
Yeah, it's not gratuitous. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Well, that's pretty damn gory.
It's pretty. Yeah,
but it fits into the story, and they didn't show it to show it. They showed it. I don't know. I don't know how to say this, but for me, they didn't linger. They hit him just the right amount of time, I thought.
Right.
Well, I think they did a good job of making it look realistic too, as far as like they didn't overdo it with the blood. You know, they did. It's interesting because they did such a good job on the effects. They didn't, I mean, a lot of times I think we see too much blood or an overuse of blood to cover a lot of mistakes that are done.
True.
They didn't have a lot of blood, but I think that's because they did a good job on the actual pieces themselves. I mean, one of my favorites, the dissection, I was like, that's really awesome.
I really have a hard time believing she would be able to remain awake that long, though.
Me too.
I'm like, yeah, that doesn't seem right.
But it was kind of awesome, though.
It was very awesome. But
as far as her being alive, I could buy that. But here's the reality. People pass out from pain. I have passed out from too much pain. So, yeah, her being awake
and alert, and conscious of what was going on.
Yeah, I find that a little shocking. But alive, sure, I could buy that she might not be dead at that point, but would she still be, that's debatable. But it's a cool concept.
And it was an awesome scene. I mean, it was a phenomenal scene.
But I was very interested in that one too, because I feel like that was excessive for who she was. If we're kind of talking about a whole reap what you sow, let the punishment fit the crime, I felt like for her, did she really deserve all that? That didn't seem fitting to me. I mean, she seemed halfway decent. Like, there's so many other people who did so much worse. Like Violet. Violet's just a horrible person.
Yeah.
She's just a bad person. So Violet. I'm like, yet, considering that's just me, but I enjoyed it. So
she was really irritating. Violet.
Yeah. So Violet has the blog, right? And does she's all about being there and voicing and all about herself. But I thought they presented her character and her obsession with it in a really smart way. But yeah, she was annoying. But she had to be, right? She meant to be. She was oblivious to what Joe was up to.
She's calling herself a journalist, but what she was really going after was, what can I do to get more hits?
Yes.
And more likes. So how garish and outlandish can I be? And what can I say that will get people worked up?
She was a journalist in the TMZ fashion.
Just preying on other people's families and I was like, God.
Yeah, you got a good insight into her, like right off the bat when they did the thing with the pouring of the water, and she had her husband believing that lady was going to light herself on fire, and right, and you're like right away, all right, well this lady is just off her rocker, and
that was real funny.
But then again, I really liked her when she, and again, I don't want to get too spoilery, but when what happens with her husband happens, we do kind of see a bit more of an accepting side of her. I mean, she really does love her husband for whatever, she accepts him as he is.
That's true. Which is interesting. But I think the reason why is I think she sees him as a better companion than husband, though.
Yeah, that may be. Yeah.
Because he's there literally supporting her through all of this stuff.
She does use him to get back at the other guy by making that video. And,
okay,
she's so codependent. That's what it is. It's just codependency.
So do you think that the video was released by the guy who made it, or it was the break-in and someone released it? Because that's one I've just been thinking about. I'm like, what happened there? Huh? Did someone actually steal it?
Oh, you mean the video with Angel and Joe?
Yeah.
I thought, the bad guys did that. Somebody.
Okay. I wasn't sure because I was like, well, I mean, he is it is kind of suiting his own needs there too.
Well, sort of, but I think he was the victim as well in that particular instance. But I agree with you that it's a little suspicious. But that's part of it. Everything's under suspicion. So, what do we think of the Druid as a villain? It's hard to come up with a new killer, and this one has familiar.
Yeah, well, I have a mask almost just like that, but I call it my purge mask.
Right. I was thinking it's the purge by way of Scream, but not really.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
I liked them. I like that it's simple. I mean, who doesn't like an axe? An axe is always a good weapon. Cleavers are so hot right now, though. I really like cleavers.
Well, we got an axe. We got dissecting tools. We got this weird sort of sword thing.
Yeah, that sword thing. Where did that come from? Where did that come from?
A drill.
A drill.
Acid.
Keep going.
Fire. Furnace.
Fire.
The blender.
Yeah.
Whoa, wow.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yikes.
I know. See, okay.
The blunt end of the axe.
What about the coffee shop owner guy? We
Yeah,
haven't talked about him.
that was awesome.
Yeah.
Mustache guy.
Mm-hmm. He basically became a percolator or something.
The best part about that was when Bill Moseley walks in and pours himself a cup.
Yeah, pours himself a cup of blood. Yeah.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Is next was there's a special guest in here that isn't actually in many of the credits. You have to look for him. And Dave, you were surprised to find that he was in there, right? Bill Moseley.
The first time I watched the show, I didn't catch him. I mean, I've seen the character obviously because he has kind of a rather impressive kill moment, if you will. I guess in his case, more of a discovery moment. I didn't catch him the second time. I'm like, I think it's probably because we had just recently watched that Mohr movie that he was in.
Oh,
yeah. And I'm like, is that Bill Moseley? I'm pretty sure I actually had to go on IMDb and look. And I'm like, so yeah, it is Bill Moseley. I knew it.
That's exactly, and I think it was because I just watched Mohr. I watch it and going, who is that? Who is that?
Yeah, you recognize the voice. Yeah, kind of recognize the voice more than the character, if you will, because he was made up to look like a bum. But it was good. It was kind of good seeing him in there. Kind of fun.
Yeah, his extended scene in the coffee shop was delightful. The whole discovery. And okay, so what did we think of that coffee guy? Because he's not with us long. Spoilers.
No, he was a fun character though. He was another one that was kind of annoying, much like Violet. He was kind of an annoying little twit, thinking that his cop, that's organic mayonnaise, and his heirloom tomatoes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Tomatoes. And, but he was kind of fun, and he's kind of one of the ones when he got killed, it didn't really bother you quite so much that he's dead. His Asian girlfriend that, the whole scene, the whole scene in the bedroom when they're trying to get it on and she's got to wear the VR mask. I mean, there's just all kinds of weird things going on in this show.
Okay, but I gotta say, I totally get her. I get her character big time. But maybe it's just because I'm a really big gamer and I'm emotionally disconnected. Overall, I'm kind of disconnected. So I was like, yeah, I totally get that. She makes a lot of sense to me. And I actually felt really sorry for her character. I feel like her death.
You did it now. Look,
I feel like hers was not warranted at all. Not warranted.
She really wasn't a bad person. Yeah, she really wasn't.
She lived inside of herself,
but she was on their trail. She was on their trail. She got it because she was going to expose.
Oh, is that what that was about?
Yeah,
okay. Yeah. Oh, yeah, because. Oh, yeah. Okay, because that was very confusing to me. Because I was like, look, she just lives in her own world. That's not a crime, and that doesn't a bad person make. I'd much rather live with neighbors who freaking kept to themselves than busybodies. Who
wasn't she also the one that hit Kit?
Yeah, she was.
Off. Not that he survived anyway.
Yes. And actually, I found the interaction between her and Kit very interesting.
Yeah.
And kind of sad, actually. He seemed genuinely interested in her. And it kind of made his conversation with her is the one moment with him that I felt like he kind of wants something more, but this is just who he is. You know, a fight maybe even within himself.
Well, he sure tells off the teacher when she tries to analyze it.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the teacher's okay. Ultimately, underneath that, the desperation you can smell is so palpable, and it is gross. Desperation's gross. I mean,
desperation is gross.
Look at the way that she reacted after that date she had. She's like, oh, he left in the middle. I'm like, oh my God. Like, sorry, I just don't have a lot of respect for people like that. Like, I'm like, it was a date from some dude you met off the internet. Calm down. Like, this is your first. No, people are just way too emotional. See, I can be such a jerk. I can be so hardcore. I'm so hardcore.
But let's talk about Sadia because she's
the main
she's
character.
basically the lead, right?
Yeah,
and
definitely.
I found her character quite refreshing. Am I alone?
Beautiful. Like, no, she's
yeah.
beautiful in every way. She's definitely sweet and kind and caring, and she wants to do the right thing. And honestly, I think even though she did some things to even start some of this, I still think she kind of did that with the right heart too. Like, she was just like, you just can't, you can't just do stuff like that. In her mind, it was innocent,
Yeah, she was trying to be true. To a certain extent, I guess Kit was being true to himself too, because that seemed to be the way he wanted to live. And he was pretty upfront about.
Yeah, he didn't lie.
Not on the relationship, And she was like that too, kind of in the other direction.
Well, Dave, what did you when you said when you watched it a second time, some of the stuff became a little ham-fisted and out there. Do you think the lead character is part of that, or did that get handled?
No, I think she got handled quite well. Actually, I mean, you very quickly become fond of her, and then when that scene happens between her and Cassidy in the hallway after the beheading, I mean, you can certainly feel her pain for being persecuted for just being of a certain faith or a certain nationality, and you certainly found, and I mean, she's got a little bit of that teen angst thing going on. I mean, mom and dad are going out of town, she's going to be home alone, and there's a party going on, and but I mean, everything she's looking to do is your typical teenage BS. There's nothing really bad going on there.
And she's got a crush.
Exactly. It's kind of cute and kind of, and then all this other stuff is swirling around her. I think the heavy-handed stuff kind of comes later, and we haven't really touched on it yet, but we have the two probably most radical characters that get trapped together and have to ultimately solve this.
That's my favorite. Oh my God, so good.
And some of that, them being glued together, and that kind of stuff. Like, come on! It reminded me of that scene in Volcano. Remember Volcano? That movie Volcano with Tommy Lee Jones. You remember this movie? And at the end of it, after the volcano erupts and they're all covered, there's this racial tension all through it. And at the end, after they defeat the deadly volcano, they're all covered in ash. And the little boy goes, "Look, we're all the same color." I'm like, oh my God. Well, this had that same kind of feel to it, I mean, we all get it. Ultimately, we're not going to get through anything unless we can all get past this bullshit and work together. We all know this.
I will say the gluing, I'm not sure I saw any other place where the killer was trying to teach somebody a lesson. I didn't understand the reason for that. It was interesting, but I didn't understand why the killer would do that.
Yeah, that might have been more of a plot than a character moment, right?
Yeah.
I was like, what can we do? Something cool. And
I kind of felt like what they had planned for them, though, or what was planned for them was a longer deal. I think they had some pretty bad things planned for them. It just never came to fruition because, things.
I really kind of like the fact that they had to see past their obvious differences. And I mean, I really enjoyed that. That's one of the best character moments in the whole show. But I just felt how they got there, again, was a little bit, it's like, all right, come on. We're not a bunch of freaking idiots. We get it.
it was kind of interesting because I think Dan is really, he acts like a tough, he's a white nationalist or whatever. I think he acts so tough, but he's really weak, and I think it kind of showed his weakness. He didn't want to be alone, and I think that's why he was like, no, stay with me. I don't think it was at first. I don't think it even mattered who it was. He just wanted someone there with him. And then I think through dependency, we can, start to become attached to people, as it were. And I mean, let's be real. Angel wound up becoming a little bit of a badass,
Yeah, a little bit.
I mean, I was like, oh, wow.
That's that old thing about if you really get to know somebody, it's hard to think of them as some sort of monster because of the demographic or category that they fit in. So that's what's sort of the forced situation there, I think. Plus, in order to get out, right?
Yes.
They learn enough about each other that it's hard not to care something. I think you're right about Dan, too, in that he felt lost and alone and like a failure, and was looking for excuses and latched onto some of the other stuff he was doing, and then lashed out at everybody around him. But
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, like you see how he becomes the whole white nationalist thing. Like Angel comes to, so I guess he's a single dad raising his daughter. I think he felt like he wasn't doing a good job. He needed help, and he had no one. And then he turned to clearly pretty much the worst thing he could possibly do.
and he drinks too much, right?
Yes, he's his own worst enemy. I mean, he's a sad character, such a sad character.
But it's so great. It's so great. The actor who portrayed him does an exceptional job, because he's definitely one of those characters that I guess you love to hate in kind of a way.
Yep.
And then ultimately, at the end of the day, again, we can't go into spoilers, or we don't want to go into spoilers, but ultimately, at the end of the day, becomes pivotal in exposing what's going on. So it was a great character arc for him, and every time he came on the screen, I knew something interesting was going to happen.
Yes.
Yep. He plays white trash really well.
He does play white trash. It was definitely white trash.
Oh, God, don't tell Rob Zombie. He'll be casting him in his goddamn movies.
Oh, no, stop.
Bill might recruit him, huh?
Oh, there you go. Do we like Connor and Jen, the friends for Sadia, who are all wrapped up in this as well? And Connor, of course, is the love interest, if you will, of Sadia, and then
sort of the crush interest.
Yeah, the
crush,
and then the best friend.
We
held hands.
Oh yeah, we held hands. I mean, for her, that was a lot, and
I thought that was. Although what was so cool is she wasn't embarrassed to say it either.
Right. Well, not to her friend. She was embarrassed when they were in school, but I like their relationship, and I like how that story progressed, especially in the final episode. Really got tested. So, any other thoughts on these two?
I've been going first, so I'm someone else have a chance.
I thought they were good. I was along with it the whole time.
Yeah. I would agree, and really, you can't, like you said, you can't go into it too much without ruining the view for somebody. So,
right.
Some things are best left unsaid.
I feel like they did such a great job on their relationships. Like the two actresses. I feel like they did such a great job at having these real friendship moments when they would laugh with each other. And I think the characters were great, how they were both so accepting of each other. Like she accepted Sadia for being Muslim and didn't ever want to change her or any. I think they made great characters. And of course, Connor, he's super precious, looking. He's super cute. He's super cute. So I thought, oh. Yeah, I was like, oh, they would make such a sweet couple.
I don't know if mom and dad would be happy though. Would they?
No.
That might be an issue.
No.
Yeah.
But I think it was such a smart choice that whoever wrote this, the smartest choice ever was to send the parents away and not have all that added stuff to the story. It made the story simpler, and that's so good, because I think had the parents been there and her had to deal with, them suffocating her, which you could tell that's the type of parents they were, that would have just been more annoying. than anything else.
Yeah, it was a smart choice. Before we wrap up, how wrong were you, each of you, in your first guess at who was the killer? Because I was always wrong.
Yeah.
I don't know that I even bothered trying to guess, quite frankly. I just kind of was along for the ride. I really wasn't trying to figure out who it was.
I was trying to pay attention to who was like never around or was in a different place when stuff was happening. But
the old Superman theory.
I was playing Clue. I was, and I couldn't.
They were way too good about that.
They were
way too good with that.
And they really got me because it was like, well, nobody fits. no one person fits. And, it all comes together and makes sense.
Was it that no one person fit, or they could all fit if you look at it in the right light?
Well, early on, all of them could, but eventually, no. It was like...
Well, not only that, plus there was so many people running around with Druid costumes. For the solstice party.
Yeah. Well, that was just red herrings, and that didn't really...
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
But the whole thing with the tree... Because this one character out of the blue gets hung up in a tree, and that threw me at first. That was a great distraction.
Yep. And it was a great kill too.
Yeah.
I love the bag over the head collecting the blood.
Yeah.
And the reveal too with that little kid was just I mean it all just worked. It really did.
So I watched it twice, as I said, and I kept thinking to myself, who killed Kit? Who killed Kit? I totally did not remember. Until I watched the second time. I was like, oh my gosh, yes.
Yep.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
And how they
now
revealed
it all makes sense.
Yeah.
Yep. And how they revealed that, an old-fashioned, cop drama way, was a lot of fun. They had a good time with that particular cliche, if you will, and it was good. I was like, oh man, so wait a minute.
so I mean, I think they may have made someone look a little bit too much like a psychopath, because I think he was a little bit more innocent. I think it was maybe more of a crime of passion than that he loved the whole.
Oh, you mean
yeah.
Mm-hmm, but I think that was because he was bent by the time they got to him. So.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah, because there was somebody I was convinced did it. We mentioned her, and she really wasn't. And I was just, oh man, it's like, come on! But it didn't make sense. She's too short. And she was always in the hall. So it didn't work. And I was like, I don't get it. Man, it had me going. And that thrilled me. That made me have a good time with it, Yeah. Yeah, I think most people will be right at one point and not know it.
I would agree with that statement.
Possibly.
I would agree with that statement. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it'll be fleeting. And then you'll know it can't be.
Yeah, because it's not, when they finally do reveal, it's not disappointing or it doesn't feel contrived in any way. You're kind of like, oh, okay, all right.
For a half second, I was like, oh, come on.
Really?
And,
no, I didn't get that.
For a half second. For like when it was first came up.
That's not very long.
It's not.
That's really quick. That's really quick, though.
But they did. It's not very long at all. But they did, cover that pretty quickly, and the narrative made perfect sense after it got exposed. So yeah, I was satisfied with it, and
yeah. No, I felt like everything. I felt that like the story made complete sense.
I think it's a great example. I mean, it's hard to imagine if gore really turns you off, you probably won't like this, but it's got a great mystery. And if you don't care about the mystery or the character development or the themes, the gore is awesome. The kills are great.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, and it's fast. Like I said, there's something about it, even though, it's got several hours, like 6 hours or so. It felt really fast.
Well, it does. I mean, if you had 17 people die in 6 hours.
Yeah. And that's what I was saying. I was like, no, It's more entertaining than some of the movies we watch.
Yeah, but it was clever. It was clever and inventive, and it kept you guessing, kept you entertained. It was gory, fast paced. The actors were fantastic. The characters were well drawn out for the most part. There's a couple that we could really get in here and because we haven't talked about Joe much. That's probably a reason why. Joe's the one character that kind of,
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, I get it, and it didn't hurt the thing, but he's not the one that I'm remembering, right? I'm remembering, all the more out there characters.
But I feel like Joe got the short end of the stick too a bit. Like he wasn't a good guy, obviously. I mean, look at what he was doing, but I mean, he had a decent heart. It's violent. Damn.
You could say he was driven to his decisions. He was repressed for one thing, and two, he was in a relationship that wasn't supportive. So it was understandable whether or not it was what he should be doing.
Well, yeah, he was trying to live a lie, basically.
Right.
Okay. You say that. Okay, you say that, but then the next minute he's up in bed with her. What?
Well, I'm not saying he's not.
I think
he's not bi.
Like, wait.
But but he loves.
Well, but is it because he's manipulated, or I don't know.
Wait a second. So you think that? Do you think a man could manipulate you into bed? That's the question. See, I don't think that they could change your sex.
No, I think you mean the other way around.
Attracted to? No. If he wasn't attracted to that particular sex.
He was repressed. He was repressed for that, and then manipulated by his wife.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. If he wasn't attracted to that particular sex, to females, how could you manipulate?
That's a cover. She's a beard for one way of saying it. Yeah.
Yeah, but then he still kept having sex with her. I don't think
I think we're trying to say this.
I think we're thinking too hard.
Yes.
We're thinking too hard about someone's sexuality. I guess for me, it's like if I wasn't attracted to males or females or whatever it was, I don't think it was.
It wasn't that. That wasn't the attraction. The attraction was, in air quotes, normal life.
Yeah.
Well, even so, he could be bisexual. Think of it if it was just
people
of the same sex, and he had a bad marriage and fell in love with somebody else.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't get that impression, but it could be. Yeah,
you didn't get that he was bi. You got that he.
I got that he was 100%, and that he was repressed to the max, and was taking the beard thing 100, to the max, all the way.
That's a tough one. It's a tough one. It's so
hard.
But
it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's just a show. But
that's so true. It's like
either way, it still works, right?
Too hard about this. I'm like, yeah, I guess that makes complete sense. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of I felt bad for him. I felt bad for him. I felt bad for Angel. I did not feel bad for Violet, though.
Violet was well, there's a word for her, and we won't go there. Let's just say that Kit wearing the horns to the party and everything was awesome. The perfect costume for him.
Yes.
It represented him in a variety of ways. From being
Didn't he say, "Do I look horny?" Or something?
He did. Yeah. At some point, he does. Yes.
Yeah, and.
So dumb.
And they got a good actor to play him because he was very charismatic, and it needed that person in that role to sell that. So
I think it's hard to play so confident because really, Kit's character is very confident. Like he just I'm good, and that's the way that it is, and that's a hard person to be.
Yeah. Do we all know somebody like that?
No.
Oh, really?
I don't know anyone who has the balls to really live their life completely unapologetic. Do you?
Maybe not. Maybe not to that extreme.
I don't think I'm in the right circles.
Yeah. Yeah, I think maybe that's probably for me too. I'm like, nope, I don't. I'm like,
well, let's wrap this up because this conversation's getting off target. And let's give our final thoughts for the show. And I guess we could pick a favorite scene for this one. There's plenty, right? So, Dave, as our guest, start us off.
Ooh, I get to go first. Yeah, I think what we're all saying here for the last hour, what we've been basically saying is this is a very well-written show. And as we've come to learn, as we've done this all these years, Mr. Rotten, the ones that are well-written are usually the ones that are the best. And they really did a great job on this. I enjoyed it all the way around, from the gore to the character arcs to the surprises and the twists and everything. It was all good. Favorite scene, I got to go with the thing that drug me in, that first kill scene, the beheading.
The beheading.
It was incredible. I mean, there's plenty of other equally as good a scene, but that's the one where I knew I was going to be sitting my ass in that chair for 8 hours and watching every minute of this one. So
yes.
I'm going to go with that one. We don't rate them on? We don't rate on here?
No, we don't have to rate this one.
I didn't think so. So that's me. That's my take.
All right, Crystal, what is your final thoughts and your favorite scene?
well, I love this. I think I have to agree with Jeff. I think that if you don't like gore, I think you could still enjoy this, but you just have several moments of the story itself is excellent and interesting. It's filmed well. The acting is good. It's got a lot of cool characters. I think there could be a lot of debates about it too. Oh, what about this and that? Yeah, some excellent murders. Really. You know what I really want to say my favorite scene is, and I got to take it. It's the dissection. It's always been about this dissection for me. I'm like, for some reason that one struck me so hard.
I think it might be is it the goriest thing that happens? Because it is the one that plays out the longest, right?
Well, I mean, yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know. I think there's
we get to see the most.
Yeah.
Innards.
Yeah, well, that might be true. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe that's what's made the impression. All right. Well, Jeff Mohr, what is your final impression and favorite scene?
I could just say ditto Crystal and Dave. It's all put together very well. I think the acting was very good. And the direction, like I said, Adam McDonald, I like his last two movies. And I think I'll keep trying to keep an eye out for him after this. The practical effects, as we said, were great. I mean, I never really thought about what it would look like if somebody got their face shoved down on a blender, but I think that's pretty close to what it would look like.
I agree.
So anyway, yeah, I think this has got something for everybody. You know, if you want to get into the whodunit of it, excellent. And if you just want to get into the kill count, you want a good slasher story, this will do that too. Favorite scene, I think first you guys have to confirm that I saw what I saw. So the coffee shop guy.
Yes.
So they ram the thing down his throat and then pour scalding, or the druid rams the thing down his throat, then pour scalding water down it. But then doesn't he hook some tubes or something up?
Yeah.
He brews him. He makes him a percolator, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And the output gets put in the carafe, and
Bill Moseley,
the bum, who's always leeching cups of coffee, comes and gets one. So I just thought that was awesome.
Yeah.
Just the whole idea of brewing a cup of blood.
Yeah. And only in a TV show like this could you spend the time developing that and making it work. So.
And it was all organic.
100% natural.
Oh, Jeff, yes. All right. Yeah. So this show is creative. It's inventive. It's bold. It's a great whodunit. It's gory. Is it scary? I don't know if it's really scary, but it's very thrilling, with one exception, and that exception is my favorite scene. The only scene that kind of had me on edge and I found harrowing was the flashback death of the mother, who spoilers sets herself on fire. And it's not that action so much as the reaction of the kids and the family and all the, come running out. And it's just, that was the only death that had immediate impact on all the characters.
Oh, yeah.
The tragedy of it all is at the core of the entire story. So it's very interesting that, this is kind of buried in the middle of it. Yeah, it creates this complex scenario with a lot of characters. That was the only moment I was like, well, maybe that, or when I kind of winched a lot when they were pulling their faces apart trying to get unglued. I will say that. I was like,
okay, I did too, because I was like, oh, that's good. Hard. So
bad. Somebody's coming out on the wrong end of that deal, and
yeah,
that was exactly. And they never.
It looked like it was Angel.
Oh, it was, and they never undid that. It was like for the rest of his scenes, a little bit of Angel hung around.
We're so messed up.
Man, but it was perfect, right? All right, so I think we are encouraging you to head over to Netflix and check out Solstice season 3 of Slasher.
Are they making season 4?
I hope so. I haven't heard.
I would think so after this. I think this has been a pretty big success for him. Yeah. So,
ironically, though, today season 1 got pulled. I don't know why. I don't know why. But season 1 got pulled, so you can only catch season 2 and season 3 now. But
I say only watch season 3 then.
Well, I think season 1 was the only one they didn't own.
Yeah, that was the one that.
Yeah, so that's probably why Netflix owns 2 and 3. So
I did like 1, but too bad.
Too bad.
Buy it on DVD.
All right. Well, Dave, I want to thank you for joining us. I hope you come back again.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Oh, know I will. I'm just going to hang out in this room after you guys hang up. So
more Twizzlers coming away. I'm going to run out of Twizzlers soon.
Or some Swedish Fish or Mike and Ike's or something.
Mike and Ike's. Yeah. No, don't take my Mike and Ike's. We're going to have to. Yeah. We're going to have to battle now. All right, Jeff, Crystal, thanks for joining.
Thank you for having
me. Always a pleasure.
Me.
All right, let's say goodnight.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Gruesome Magazine.